Okay, I know it is an age-old question. What if Gears of War got jacked up on grimdark lore and protein powder? Well, you'd get Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine, the Mastercrafted edition. So picture this, you're Captain Titus, you're a walking tank with the mantra of Aragon and the jawline of a 1980s action figure. Alongside you've got loyal bros like Sidonus, who's like a like a grizzled vet vibes, right? And then Leandros, who's like the rookie, who probably alphabetizes his bolter ammo. And then you're knee-deep in Orks on a planet that's basically one giant factory having the worst day ever. The gameplay, if you think third-person shooter meets, like I mentioned, Gears of War, but then Gears of War met Doom, and then they formed a band, a metal band, and then they lived on a diet of grimdark lore and protein shakes. It's unapologetically from the Xbox 360 era, and that's kind of part of the charm. It's like rewatching Predator and realising it's still brilliant, even if the CGI is about 3 polygons short of modern. Now that the sequel has finally landed, finally landed. I mean, we're not living under a rock. Space Marine 2 is epic, but the original, it's kind of become a bit of a cult classic. Dust it off, fire it up, and prepare to purge heretics with the power of friendship and an absurdly large chainsword for the Emperor, obviously. Now, enter the Mastercrafted edition. It's like a glow-up for Space Marine that's like giving your favourite old miniatures this shiny new paint job and some extra articulation. This remastered beast, it brings in updated controls, less tank steering and more actual marine, 4K resolution, sharp enough to spot an orc's dental hygiene, crisper textures, and better character models. I don't know who I think I am. I'm not funny. Right, better, what did I just say? You also get remastered audio, and wait for it, even more orc trash talk. Yep, they've added new lines for those green-skinned hooligans to yell at you, so now your journey through the grimdark future includes some fresh shouty banter. You'll notice the improvements like straight away, especially on the enemies. There was this one guy in the original, he had the facial detail of like a PS2 NPC and witness protection, right? But now he's got enough menace to make you flinch when he charges. The extra detail, it kind of makes them feel more alive, more gruesomely animated, which is like a win-win for the 41st millennium, right? The environments, they've also had a bit of a facelift. Granted, there's only so much sparkle you can add to a game that spends most of its time in corridors that look like they were decorated by a very sad robot using only scrap metal and ash. Don't know where I'm going with that one, but still, with sharper models and better lighting, the whole thing, it holds up surprisingly quite well. And the bottom line is, it's still Space Marine. It's just shinier and smoother and a bit more shouty. Think of it like I said, watching Aliens on Blu-ray for the first time. It's still the classic Blu-ray. Are we watching Blu-ray still? Please tell me someone still watches Blu-ray. It's not just me. Anyway, let's talk about the controls in the Mastercrafted edition, because the Emperor knows that smooth controls are sacred. Does that work? The good news is they tried to modernise things for today's audience. The bad news is that some of it still kind of feels like they handed the controls over to a tech priest who's been asleep since the 90s. First off, we've got that weapon wheel, right? You'd think in the far future where chainswords and plasma guns exist, selecting your boomstick of choice would be slick and seamless, but it's still a bit clunky is the word that's coming to my head. Post-patch, they did kind of improve it a little. At least the wheel doesn't loiter on the screen like an awkward servo skull, but it's still stiff enough to throw off your flow. That's hard to say. Throw off your flow challenge. Do it now. Mid-orc bashing. Then there's the incident, which is like a control scheme choice, so really confused me a little bit. It kind of feels like a prank from the Dark Eldar. Right, originally they had grenade throwing mapped to the right stick. That's the left. Right. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if the game didn't also require you to click both sticks to activate Fury mode, aka your Hulk smash moment. That didn't look great, did it? What ended up happening far too often is you'd unleash righteous vengeance, and then instead, well, I would yeet my grenade into the wall, cue the sound of my own distant screams. Sorry, neighbours. And my controller being thrown. I'm not that aggressive. My controller was placed down with a thud. An update has kind of fixed this mostly, so credit where it's due, but for a good chunk of my playtime, I was fragging myself instead of going full Space Marine rage mode. Maybe I'm just a noob. Maybe you've zoned out. I don't know. Not exactly the heroic image I had in mind. And the bottom line is the controls, they've kind of been patched up like an old dreadnought. They're functional, they're mostly sturdy, and they've got a few leftover, like squeaks and squirks. Squirks? What? Quirks. Expect a smoother ride now, but keep your thumb ready for surprises. Like cats. Okay, let's talk about bugs, and not the Tyranid variety. Because what's a remaster without a few charming quirks to remind you that there's still a video game underneath all of this shiny polish, right? Do not worry. I'm not talking cyberpunk at launch levels of chaos here. Sorry, I said it. But during my week so far with the Master Crafted Edition, I've ran into like the occasional hiccup, like enemies getting stuck on terrain and running in place like they were late for leg day. Like, picture a furious orc, okay, charging and then moonwalking into a bit of pipe work for like 10 seconds. It's not immersive at all. Slightly funny though. There are also a few moments where the enemies just straight up ignored me. Even I was like pumping rounds into them. Rounds of bullets. Like the world's angriest Nerf gun enthusiast, as I like to imagine myself. You'd expect them to at least grunt or like look at me mean. But no, they just stood there, like confused extras in the background of a Star Trek episode who had like missed their cue. So thankfully, these moments, so far, I mean, it's only been a week for me, but they've been like few and far between. But when they did happen, they kind of took me out of the experience slightly. I was a bit left. It's hard to feel like a hardened Space Marine when your enemies are just too busy trying to pathfind around a small rock to notice the guy revving a chainsaw behind them. Hi, I'm here. Maybe why is there no wave option? Look, if you're a fan of the original release, it's good news because the gameplay, it's still, I think anyway, kind of meaty, satisfying, like a bolt pistol to the face at point blank. The core combat, it's still intact. It's smacking orcs around with a thunder hammer while soaring through the air on a jetpack. It never gets old, right? It's the kind of over-the-top crunchy action that makes you feel like you're starring in your own Expendables movie of the 41st millennium as a spin-off. That would be cool. Anyway, every swing, it kind of hits like it's trying to solve diplomacy through blunt trauma. And honestly, it's like peak Space Marine energy. The combat, it can get seriously intense. Especially when you're being swarmed by a horde of angry green lads who all skipped anger management. It's got that classic arcade thrill, you versus the galaxy, low on health, fury meter charged. I'm always low on health. But anyway, it's absolutely like still refusing to die politely. In the end, it's a solid 6 to 7 hour romp through the grimdark goodness of the Warhammer 40k universe. It's perfect for scratching that Space Marine itch, while you're still, I guess, sizing it up against Space Marine 2. It's short, it's sweet, it still packs enough punch to remind you why we all fell in love with the Emperor's angriest sons in the first place. The only thing I can't comment on too much or at all, really, is the multiplayer. Because, well, I have the same number of gaming friends as like a lone servitor stuck in a cupboard. So this review is proudly single-player approved. But even flying solo, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine Master... I knew I was going to mess that up, right? Master Crafted Edition. It did feel good. The 4K resolution, the upgraded textures, the slicker character models, they really do shine. Like someone lovingly polished the grimdark until you could almost see your reflection in Titus's shoulder pad. It's a welcome chance for us, me, all of us, to dive, re-dive, I don't know, into the story of Titus and his grumpy band of bolter buddies. And thankfully, it does still feel like the original, obviously. It is, anyway, just with a modern spit shine and slightly less pixelated orcs shouting at you. That said, obviously, there were some hiccups I don't recall from before, like enemies getting stuck on geometry, or the aforementioned grenade instead of fury mode, but maybe that's just me being a noob. It did have me rage laughing though. Rage laughing into the warp. Does that work? Is that cringy enough? Hopefully the bugs will get squashed in upcoming patches, hopefully by a dedicated team with some WD-40 and prayers to the machine god. I'm trying here with these references, okay? Look, as I stood on the war-torn battlefields, shall we try and make this dramatic now? Watching orcs scatter before me, I couldn't help but hear a voice in my head. Now, this is something I do, and I highly recommend it. Creed. Can you take me higher? Right, yes, Creed. Always Creed. bang that song on in the background as you go right into the skies with a jump pack and a thunder hammer, screaming for glory, for the Emperor and justice and all those poor souls fragged by their own grenades, like me, and you've got yourself a top-tier Friday evening. Promise. Just remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. If you made it this far, I don't really know what this video is different, right? But it's just me having a little review rant, implore you to play. I don't know. Either way, please do all those things you need to do to please support my tiny channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.